Welcome to LSC. It's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Andy Hilton, who runs Recruit757.com. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you. Thank
Glad
you. Glad
to have you here. Well, you grew up on the South Side, over in Portsmouth. Played a little ball when you were a kid. Played a little Pop Warner.
Played a little Pop Warner, played a little baseball. That was back in the days when we played everything. I know you're probably familiar with that. Played basketball, played baseball and football and golf and tennis. Went on to play golf and tennis in high school.
Right.
I've had a lot of sports background.
But you went to IC Norcom.
Yes.
And played tennis for 4 years.
Yes, I did.
Even made it up to number 2.
That's right. Made it up to number 1 doubles, number 2 singles. Had a good time playing tennis there. Also played some golf. And yeah, it was a good high school sports career. Didn't play any college.
Right. But during this time, you got you've always liked sports.
Absolutely.
And this is something that brought you in what we're going to talk about. But when you graduated from high school, you went to Old Dominion.
Sure.
What am I going to do?
That was the thing. I didn't have the sports scholarship to fall back on. I went on to Old Dominion trying to figure out what I was going to do. Took some basic classes, took 2 years of courses there, did fantastic, and finally in my sophomore year decided I wanted to go into music industry. Not just a classical music degree, but this is more music business, audio production, a variety of things.
Why music? Did you have music background?
Oh yeah, I had music background as well. My mom was a music instructor for the public schools in the city of Portsmouth. Dad was an engineer, but had some music background as well. Voice was my instrument, and was in a band out there. Did a variety of things, variety of fun. But the cool thing about the degree program there was I had a minor in communications. So I did audio production, I did music business, promotion and management of artists, venue management, journalism, video, film, television, radio, and on and on. It was a great degree. It was all disciplines.
But that's at the University of Memphis.
Yes.
So that's where you transferred because Old Dominion didn't have
Old Dominion didn't have anything like that,
Right.
and it was a pretty nice deal that's still in place that I was able to go out of state for in-state tuition because the degree program is not offered anywhere in the state of Virginia.
Right. Oh, that's kind of neat because a lot of people don't know that.
No, I didn't even know it when I picked it, but found out when I got there, and it certainly saved a heck of a lot of money.
Right. Well, to give you an example, up in Minnesota, the Dakotas, and Wisconsin, you live in any of those states, you can go to any of their state schools, in-state tuition.
Wow.
My granddaughter lives in Minnesota but goes to the University of Wisconsin for state tuition, so it's kind of neat. Saves the money.
Sure does.
But now, you do this stuff and you get your degree from University of Memphis and you go into recording studio.
Yes, because that was what I was specifically trained for, was the audio engineering side, but I found very quickly that's a lot of hours and not a lot of money unless you're working on a big project, you're making it big. And being here, I came back here for a job, but it's difficult to find that kind of work, find lucrative work, especially fresh out of college. Here in an area like Virginia Beach or Norfolk, to be in the centers like Chicago or Nashville or LA or New York, those are the places to be, and I found it easier with having family here to go into another direction, and that was marketing and advertising with radio. So that added just another element to my experience. Right.
Now, what made you decide that you were going to help University of Memphis recruit in this area?
Well, that's funny. That's how the whole thing started, was 5 years ago, and so it may have actually been more than 5 years ago now. There was a running back, actually, Tron Martinez. At Hampton was one of those kids that I looked at as a possible recruit for University of Memphis, because University of Memphis football has not been really that good. That was in an era where D'Angelo Williams was finishing up his career there. Paul Gostowski, who's now the kicker for New England, was also there. They had a couple of key players, but needed another wave of talent to keep the program going.
Right, gets an infusion of talent that could produce for him.
Yes.
I see Tron ended up going up to Marshall.
After a hiccup here and there and some time, yes, he went up to Marshall. There was Kevin Newsom on the south side, played for Western Branch. So there was some players that I was throwing at Memphis in terms of ideas, and it's funny how that relationship started, because I wanted to help my alma mater and began to get some feedback from them. Okay, well, if you think these kids are good, which they didn't necessarily believe
Right.
yet. We need to see video.
What
we
do you
need
know
more
about this?
information.
You didn't play sports.
Yeah,
Right? You're a music guy. What do you know about sports?
I know plenty about sports, and the funny thing was it took a while, but I learned along the way what they needed in terms of video, what they reviewed, what they looked for. It's interesting that all college coaches are different in the way they assess players, but one thing that is in common with all of them, video is how they can do it, because the NCAA limits the amount of visits that a college coach can make to a high school and how many days they can be on the road. They also limit a college to one game of any one team. So if a Phoebus player is being recruited, the college coach from Memphis or any other school can only visit a Phoebus game to watch a player live in action once during the season.
So that
they have to see other games,
Yeah.
and they want to see a breadth of examples of how this player plays. So that's how it got started, was doing video work for colleges, and it went well. They started believing, and they came out here and started recruiting and started making offers.
And this was the coach that you had to sell to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, actually, the assistant coaches as well.
Okay, it's going to work.
Yeah, and it's Tommy West, who was at Clemson prior to going to University of Memphis as a head coach, and he had, I believe, 9 years before the axe fell, and he was no longer the head coach at the University of Memphis, which was kind of a setback, and it was a disappointment because the kids that were being recruited didn't know where their offer stood. A new head coach came in. He was an assistant at LSU. He was an alumni of University of Memphis, but because he was recruiter of the year at LSU for 2 of the previous 3 years, he had his own ideas on who needed to be recruited and how they were to be recruited, and Virginia was not part of the plan for the new regime at the University of Memphis.
So he was going in a different direction, obviously. So during this is about 5-6 years ago, whatever, and then you decided, hey, there are a lot of athletes in a 757, and we're not just talking Peninsula, we're talking South Side, that you say, okay, I can help these kids. I can get the word out to the other schools. So that's when you set up Recruit757.com.
Yeah, set it up formally because I had been blogging up to that point.
Right.
The interesting thing was with the coaching staff at Memphis being blown up, they had sent a couple of coaches out here on a couple of different occasions, so I'd worked with several different coaches at the University of Memphis, and once that had kind of unfortunately blown up, I went to thinking that I could help a number of athletes in the area and not just send somebody to Memphis, but also those assistant coaches were sent in other directions. So there's one now at University of Tennessee. There's one now at the University of Kentucky. He had spent some time also at Ole Miss. There's been some, as the coaching world, you know how the head coaches move around, the assistants move around just as much.
Right, and what that does is that networking, they're going to remember what they saw when they come out here. And that's good. Talking about this, you've been instrumental in some different kids getting scholarships. Eric Anderson is a good example.
Eric is a perfect example, and I don't claim to be the one source that does everything for everyone, and one of the things I don't do is specifically represent kids. I represent the kids of the area in general, but I don't go and seek out to be a representative or an agent for anyone. That would be a violation of NCAA There's all sorts of regulations involved with that. I work with the colleges. However, I want to see, and Recruit 757 sets out to do for all the kids in the region, and that's from the Division I to the Division III kids, JUCO, what have you. We want to see kids get a college education. In Eric's example, we took a look at Eric a long time ago as a triple threat, so to speak, punter, kicker, quarterback. Worked with Eric a little bit, put some video out for Eric, and
different schools looked at it.
Different schools, yep. And the University of Delaware latched onto it, which was a school that we, up until that point, hadn't begun working with. We now have Recruit 757 has a great relationship with Delaware.
So why?
And he is quite a steal for Delaware. And there's plenty of other kids that fit that kind of category where the schools can't be everywhere all the time. Recruit 757 tries to be as comprehensive as possible in knowing who's who, what's what the talent levels are, what the expectations could be, what the scouting prognosis might be for a kid, so that we can find a college fit for the variety of players that are here in the area.
Now, when you and I were talking, you was telling me that the junior year is usually the year, if a kid has a breakout, that's when the college coaches really start noticing. But you have a kid that over in Kings Fork. Tell me that story.
Sure. Well,
I think here's a kid that just didn't have a good junior year.
Yeah, he's another one that we've been able to help because at Kings Fork, going back to the junior year very quickly, the junior year is big, especially for the bigger schools that recruit, because a school like Virginia Tech, UVA, or anyone else on that level from out of state, they are working early and working ahead on what next year's classes. So they're already working on kids that are in their junior year now for who's going to be recruited in 2014. So a kid like Quinn Blanding at Bayside, he's one of the top recruits in the region. Andrew Brown at Indian River, he's one of the top recruits in the region. Actually, I say region, in the country. They already hold more than 2 or 3 dozen offers each, because schools are after that kind of a kid. Devon Grayson is the kind of story where he was unfortunate in that he didn't play. He played some in his sophomore year, didn't really get noticed, but he broke his hand in the 3rd game of his season with Kings Fork as a junior, and only had 9 catches total in those 3 or 2.5 games because he played wide receiver in a team that's a triple option offense. Triple option is run, try to figure out who's got the ball, but it's not a lot of passing, and so he didn't have a lot of film. However, at the off-season camps, combines, and competitions, even 7-on-7, he showed that he can run a 4.4 40. He showed that he has good leaping ability, great hands. He's 6'1", 6'2", 185 pounds. He's exactly the kind of wide receiver that teams like Marshall, East Carolina, Old Dominion, James Madison, and a number of other colleges wanted. He ended up committing to East Carolina. So again, we've got a kid coming out of our area going to a Division I school, big time college football, that may not have gotten noticed otherwise.
Now, during these combines and stuff, are you filming this stuff? And that gets to the...
Well, combines can't be filmed.
Okay, I didn't know
they
that.
can be filmed, but the colleges, by NCAA regulation, can't use that, can't review that kind of thing, and they can't attend those events unless they're specifically cleared and sanctioned for college coaches to attend.
All right, so how did you get the word about this?
It's reporting, it's scouting, it's sharing reconnaissance, so to speak. It's a lot of information sharing that goes beyond video.
All right, now I notice you take a lot of still pictures at the ball games.
Yes.
You do video at the games. Now you put this on your website. Now, but what the people see, if I go on that website, I will see something different than what the coaches say.
Sure. Recruit 757 is actually 2 parts, because one, it's an entertainment vehicle for the local football fan that loves high school football and loves seeing kids go off to college. We'll also include stories on what the kids are doing at college, how they're doing, how their year went, that kind of thing. We do follow them beyond high school. Great. But the website is primarily for news and information and entertainment, whereas the scouting and recruiting side of things is purely for the service of colleges, a mechanism to get them in here to make offers and figure out who they want to pursue.
Right. So what is the difference in what they say? Is it geared to their specific needs? Is that what you're doing for the college coaches?
Yeah, the college coach, yeah, everything is customized for them. They get video that doesn't go, we shoot entire games and can cut highlight packages from those games.
So you do a lot of editing.
Do a lot of editing, do a lot of game film review. There's a lot of things that go to the colleges that never see the website, because the colleges pay to keep us on retainer to give them the latest information. And that can sometimes differ from what the public sees on the website.
Right. So, now how many people you got doing this? You're the only one?
I'm the main one. A lot of work flows through me, being the director of the site, because it was my vision to begin with, and we're still at the growth stages, but there are a number of folks that shoot video. We've got a team of about 8 to 10 on any given night. We've got a number of photographers that volunteer their time to shoot photography that feeds the website for visuals, and it also allows us to share some of that stuff with the college coaches, but the majority of that is purely for the website, for the promotion of these players. And granted, there are colleges that we're not working with yet that can come to the website and see what the area is all about and inquire about scouting service from what they see on the site.
What determines what games you cover? Are you covering all games?
We don't have the resources to cover all games because there could be 25 on a Friday night. There could be 25 games, even if I had 10 people out.
We're talking South Side and here.
South Side.
So what makes you determine what games that you're going?
Quite often,
criteria?
The first criteria is which prospects are participating in what game and where do they sit in the scheme of things. The second thing is we also provide the opportunity for the colleges that we work with to request what games they want to see. So they may be looking at a player from Menchville. They may be looking at Dylan Christopher. They want to see how Dylan is doing, and they recruit him. They are recruiting him. They may not want anyone to know that they're recruiting him. So there's all sorts of things that go into. We're not announcing on a week-to-week basis, hey, we're going to be here. And not to mention, just because we shoot video doesn't mean that anything's going to be put on the site related to our shooting video of a particular player.
Now, you've seen athletes on both sides.
Yes.
South Side and Peninsula. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Why not?
Where do you see the difference between the athletes? I know you're going to see some that are just awesome over there and some awesome over here. Since you've been doing this, where do you see the most?
It's cyclical. That's one thing I will say, because I think this year the Peninsula District is down a little bit. You saw Woodside lose to Maury. You've seen Hampton lose in an upset last week to Bethel. There's some things that are going on, but again, with the cyclical nature of talent, there's still plenty of talent in the Peninsula District. There's a lot of talent in the Beach District, Southeastern, with teams like Oscar Smith and Grassfield. Western Branch is coming up. There's a lot of talent all over the region. The one thing I do share with the colleges that I work with is if you're looking for skill talent, we have perhaps the best concentration. We're like a California or a Texas or a Florida. If you put the 757 and made it a state, we'd have every bit of the same concentration of talent as those schools do, especially when you consider skill talent. Big beefy linemen, not so much, but you've got a lot of skill players here. If you're looking for linemen, there are select few, but your traditional corn-fed Midwestern lineman is found up in the Midwest, not in the 757.
Why do you think we have in the 757? Why is there so many good athletes that excel, whether it's a running back or a quarterback? But I mean, they just seem to jump out.
I'd say there's two things that jump out to me, and I think they're both honestly related to the military.
Okay.
Because the military is full of fit men who have children, and they're also not only fit and athletic, but they're also disciplined. And football requires discipline. And I've had a lot of people come in for outside the area and say, not only, wow, you've got some great talent here, but you've got some great young men here, because they know how to handle themselves more often than not.
Well, and I would think also the coaches have a lot to do with it, because if you look at these individuals, you have to have the fundamentals. And if you don't have the fundamentals, I don't care how good an athlete you are, you got to have good fundamentals to be to excel in whatever sport it is. We're pretty fortunate to have some good coaches on the peninsula, but there's some good coaches on the south side too.
Yes, there are.
So, talking about the coaches that you see, now, we're going to put Mike Smith up here in a level by himself.
Yes.
The coaches 500 games. I mean,
it's 500 wins, not just 500 games. But he's
just
in a class by himself.
But when you look at the coaches as a whole, what kind of feedback do you get from the kids as the respect that they have for the coaches?
Oh, I mean, I don't think they have, we're talking about kids, we're talking about teenagers, so I don't think they have the same appreciation that you and I would for not only the longevity of the coaches, but the commitment that the coaches have, because that's one thing with high school coaching. These are not the guys that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or millions a year, millions like a Nick Saban or anything like that. But these guys know their work, they're dedicated to the kids, and they do it because they love the kids and they love the game. And that's a big difference from a college coach or an NFL coach that the kids really won't see now, but they'll have an appreciation for once they move on, go to college football, go into life, go in a career. They're going to look back and hopefully have an appreciation for what their football coach has done for them.
And it's not just football coaches, it's coaches in general, but I get young men to come back in here and they talk to me about the coach gave me life lessons, not just how to play the game, but he helped me with things that go on later on in life that just You know, I had no idea.
Well, absolutely. And I think with football, it's unfortunate, but football more so than perhaps any other sport, maybe basketball being second, you've got a lot of kids that are playing the sport because this is a way out for them. And their family situation may not be the best, and that coach can be a father figure for them as well. So with football, you have a lot of that going on, and again, hopefully you've got a lot of appreciation for getting them in a better place through their sport, and that's something we reinforce at Recruit 757. We're all about education and want to see kids move on from high school, see the value of a college education, and use football as a vehicle,
as a tool
to get an education.
Else. Right. We're going to wrap this thing up because I want you to talk about the scholarship workshop that you set up. And last time you had 200 parents, and you do this free.
Yes.
And I think this is just an awesome thing. Talk about that.
Well, that's something we put together, again, going toward the idea of promoting scholarship. It's not a recruiting workshop. It's not a prospect kind of situation. It's open for all football players, and actually would apply to all athletes. But what we will do, and what we do in this event, is have a variety of speakers that speak, of course, on a variety of topics, and it may be everything from SAT help to discipline. The Marine Corps is a sponsor of ours. Bayport is a sponsor of ours, talking about gap funding and financial aid. If you don't get a scholarship, there are other ways to go to college. Don't feel like you have to have the money in your pocket in order to go to college, because there are ways to make it happen. But also ex-NFL players. Giovanni Ruffin spoke at our April event. Ed Beard, who is an ex-49er, ex-Oscar Smith player, ex-Tennessee Volunteer, spoke at the April event. We also had a couple of local high school coaches, Larry Archie from IC Norcom, Chris Scott from Ocean Lakes, speaking about what the recruiting process is all about, what college coaches are going to look for when they come to talk to you, what you need to look for when you go to a college campus. So we covered all the spectrum of topics, but the main point of it is to help parents understand the recruiting process, help kids to know their place in things, and encourage good scholarship, good academics, and using athletics to get the college degree.
I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Andy Hilton. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.